Hello everybody and thank you for joining me. This is Sierra from Sierra T Designs, and today I have a card that kind of didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, but still turned out pretty neat. So let's jump right in. So I'm going to create the background, and I'm intentionally trying for a very vibrant background. So you see I have my Splat box there, and I have a piece of distress watercolor cardstock cut to the A2 size. And then for the spray colors, you saw that I kind of added some water to it first to get my colors to move. And then for the colors, I am using Distress Picked Raspberry and Tumbled Glass spray stain. And then for the two mica stains, I have Jack-o'-lantern, which was in the Halloween set from last year, and Harvest Moon, which is in the mica set from this year. So you can't get Jack-o'-lantern currently, but Tim Holtz has said that they would be bringing back last year's colors next year, so you will be able to get it down the road. It's just such a beautiful orange. And for this, I really wanted vibrant colors. And I tried to pick colors that I knew would play really well together as well. So I know that blue and pink make purple. I know that like yellow and pink make an orange, although I did bring in an orange, so that wasn't a big deal. And then, of course, yellow and blue make green. So, I knew that these colors would mix beautifully together. So, I wasn't really concerned about making mud or creating anything that was really brown or not going to look very pretty. Although, really, for this technique, it really doesn't matter just because we are going to cover it up later. So, this panel won't stay as vibrant as it is here. I want it to start out vibrant so that the colors are stronger in the end. And I do kind of lose a little bit of the color just because of the stamp set I chose to use with this. If you had a slightly more, not completely solid, because of course that wouldn't work with this technique, but something slightly more solid than what I actually end up using, you would probably have a slightly better opportunity to have the colors show through more. But this is the way we are going to do this, and it's a technique that I love. I don't actually know what the name of this technique is, to be honest with you. See if you know, leave it in the comments for me so that I can remember it for the next time I try it out. But we create this super vibrant background, which we've done, and then we're going to clear heat emboss images on top of it. So there you just saw that I was checking to see if my panel was dry, and it wasn't quite dry. The embossing powder stuck in a few areas, so I did come back in with my heat gun and set it again, and you did see me set it a few times throughout the making process, and I added some flicks of water for extra texture, but of course those flicks of water will also attract the embossing powder. So it is one of those things where it's kind of an interesting balance. I've never done this technique with sprays. Normally I would do it with ink blending because I find that it dries better, so I'm not as concerned with the embossing powder sticking in places it doesn't belong. But honestly, for this technique, it doesn't really matter because it's not a really precise technique anyway. So I think that it turns out pretty much stunning every time I've done it, regardless of how messy the background kind of ends up. But so now we're going to bring in, this is the Leaf Prints 2 stamp set that Tim Holtz just brought out. And yes, I did just use it in my last video. I'm in love with this stamp set, and I had a few ideas when I saw it, so I really wanted to make those ideas so that I could get different ideas for different things. I find that I kind of get stuck when I have certain cards in my mind. So I did treat the cardstock with an anti-static powder tool, and then I am going to use my Misti for this. I did put a little piece of, I adhered it to the little mat there. It was just a piece of, I think it was like Tombow, the glue roller, the dry adhesive, and I put a really small piece because that of course is permanent, but I needed to have my panel sit there without moving, and I couldn't use a magnet because I needed to be able to stamp off the page because that kind of creates a more interesting background, a more dynamic background. So I just used a little piece of dry adhesive to adhere it down to the piece of paper that sits in my Misti all the time. And I stamped down multiple of the images. I kind of just arranged them how I thought that they would look nice. And then I'm going to also bring in, so here you're going to see I'm heat setting the clear embossing powder, which I know doesn't look like much at all, except, I can see it, but it doesn't, of course, show up on camera. And sadly, this card doesn't show up on camera as well as I wish it did. it just doesn't pick it up. Like here it looks stunning, but once I kind of add the dark later, you can't really, it doesn't pick it up as well as I wish it did. And I think that's partly me and how I film or how I take my photography, but so it's something I'm, trying to improve on. But so I did bring in also just this really cool stamp from the Field Notes stamp. It's just a circle with some text in it. I like circles. I like circles in my backgrounds. I think that they look really neat. So I wanted to kind of add a little more interest to the background. So I did bring that in. And I'm also going to use it later when I kind of do the bundle of leaves as the foreground part, the accent. Just because honestly, here's the part where people like kind of freak out a little bit. I have Versafine Onyx black ink, and I'm going to coat the back of this in this black ink. And now you could use any black ink. I've used Distress ink before. I've used Distress Oxide, whatever you want to do. I chose to use this one just to try it because, again, I had never done this with sprays and I didn't know quite what I was going to get. So it's kind of me just playing with stuff in my stash and seeing how it kind of comes together. And it was really interesting because I put the black ink across the panel and the mica kind of still comes to the forefront, which I thought was really neat. Now, you could go in and add a second layer of black to kind of intensify that black a bit more. I chose not to. I kind of liked that it was almost a bit muddy, kind of. Like it's not like this really, really dark black, which I kind of think looks neat. I don't know. You guys will have to let me know what you think of how this card comes together, but it was kind of just an experiment playing with the same leaf stamps and getting a completely different card than the card that I made last week. So we're going to work on the focal points, and I just picked 3 random leaves that I thought would look good, and I'm going to stamp them down on some heavyweight vellum, and then I'm going to fussy cut them out. Heavyweight vellum is my preferred vellum. I use this vellum all the time. This is my favorite vellum, but because it embosses really, really well. So I really like that. I think that that's just easier for the techniques that I like to do, to just have a really heavyweight vellum on hand, and I just use it every time I need vellum. So that's just kind of my preferred. And everything I use is always linked and listed down below. And if I ever miss anything and you want to know what it is, please leave me a question or a comment. I respond to every comment that everybody leaves. Sometimes it takes me a little bit of time to come back and answer them all. I'm busy with some things, but I do always answer them. So if you ever have a question or want a comment or just want to tell me something that's going on in your world, I'm more than happy to hear it. I want to build this as a safe community to just chat and be friends and just share a passion that we all have. So by all means, if you ever want to, talk to me, please do. So I white heat embossed the leaves, and then I brought that circle stamp back in from Field Notes, and I heat embossed it in a gold embossing powder because I want it to kind of, I was going to say, okay, so sorry, I got a little distracted. If I had a leaf stamp that was like a wax stamp, I would have done a wax stamp for this because I think it would have looked stunning if I could have done like a melted gold wax and then stamped in it with the metal stampers. Hopefully you guys understand what I'm kind of talking about, but I don't have a leaf. I have a rose and I have another flower, and I think I have a dream catcher, but I don't have a leaf. So I decided to bring this Field Note stamp back in and kind of make it be like a little label stamp. And then Mist had to come and help. She's my supervisor. She's always with me. She pretty much she sleeps on my desk when I do voiceovers. She sleeps on my feet. She sleeps on my lap when I'm crafting. She has to make sure that quality is where it's at and it needs to be. So she's here just kind of supervising. And I thought I'd leave this in so you guys could see her. I do get a lot of questions about the cats and comments about them. So I like to make sure you guys get to see them when they pop in the videos. And I just kind of laid out the leaves how I wanted them and then just kind of adhered them together. I didn't attach them to the background because I wasn't totally sure what I was going to do with the sentiment at that point. Of course, now I know what I'm doing with it. I brought in the Noteworthy stamp set, which it's funny because when I first saw it, I was like, you don't need that. You know, whatever, that's fine. And then after I saw it being used on like loads of different cards that I'd seen, on Instagram or in card makes that Tim Holtz had shared, I was like, holy moly, it's so versatile. And I love the font. And as a person who loves fonts, I I had to have it, and I've used it so many times, and it just has such great and supportive sentiments. So I had to have it in my stash. So now I'm using it on like all the cards because I think it matches so well with so many things. But I did choose Be Fearless for this one because that's something I'm actually struggling with as well. If you guys have been following me for a little bit, you know, if you watched my Meet the Creator video, I talked about how I really wanted to open my own Etsy store and kind of have my own little stationery shop. And that was kind of like a dream that I had to create, you know, stickers and postcards and whatnot and sell them. And I just... I'm dragging my feet on it because I'm terrified that I'm going to put in all this work and nobody's going to want anything that I make. And I know that's, you know, like that's, I'm sure everybody who's trying to start their own small business goes through that. I have no doubt. But, you know, it's just sometimes it's almost a little bit debilitating. And it's sad because it kind of stops you from following your dreams. So I thought this Be Fearless sentiment was really fitting for how I've been feeling lately. So I thought that would kind of just be fitting for this card. And I thought this card kind of went a bit in a different direction than I thought it was going to. So it also kind of just fit what was going on with the card. So there you saw that I wanted to layer up the vellum. I wanted this label to kind of stand out more. So I cut out the square that had the embossing on it and I ran it through my Xyron, which is a sticker maker. And then I ran it through just so I could adhere it down to that square. And then I cut it out into the circle that I wanted it to be. You could use a nested circle die or whatever instead. I just fussy cut it because I find that easier. And then it kind of matches this less specific, like perfect look that I'm kind of going for with this card. And then I ran it through again just to put that sticker adhesive on the back once again so that it would be really easy to adhere when I went to adhere it to the card. And you saw me bring in my Deckled edge trimmer and I just trimmed off the edges of this panel just to kind of give it a little more texture and a little more interest. And then we're going to kind of just put the card together, which I usually, when I sit down to create, I know the direction I'm going in. Usually I can kind of like brainstorm what I want to make and I can see the card in my head. And then usually I can sit down and make the card that I see. But every once in a while, I'm struggling a little bit. And this card was one of those. I knew that I really wanted to do the background and it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. But I didn't know what I wanted to do on the foreground of this card to kind of be the eye catch. And I had to cycle through a lot of different ideas before I came to this. So this card actually took me a long time to make because I just couldn't figure out what the heck I wanted to do after the background was made. So I hope you guys enjoyed the card. I hope that this is a cool technique that maybe you would try. And then I brought in the Liquitex Iridescent Acrylic Ink. I used this in the last card as well. I'm in love with it. I think it's stunning. It's just so shiny. Sadly, it doesn't photograph well, but it's iridescent gold metallic acrylic ink and it's super fluid and it's so pretty. So I had to bring it in and I just flicked it along in the background just to tie in this gold seal a little bit more with what I have going on. And then I kind of went back and forth on where I wanted the seal to sit. Again, if I could have done a wax stamp, I probably would have done the layout a little bit differently, but I don't have a leaf in my little stash, so I ended up doing this kind of circle-y label. And I mean, the gold this is pretty much the only real gold other than what I just splashed onto the background. So it helps draw your eye to the leaves. Although the leaves stand out on their own. There is no question there because they're white on a very dark background. But it kind of is just another pop of color that kind of catches your eye. So, I mean, there are a couple of ways I could have done this a bit differently, but this is kind of how I went with it. And I think it turned out pretty good. It kept morphing into something slightly different than what I thought it was going to be, but that's okay too. It's good to experiment and play with your supplies and, have fun making because that's kind of the point. So then I had to bring in some pink fresh jewels. This is from the essential set that I have that come in those cool little circle containers. And they're kind of like a coppery gold color. And I don't think I've ever used them. So I thought they fit in really well with this card. So That is the card I have for you guys today. I'd really love to know what you think of this card, or, anything you want to share with me. I'm always happy to hear from you guys. So I'd love it if you'd leave me a like, leave me a comment, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do new videos every Monday and Thursday. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you again really soon. Bye-bye for now.